Welcome to the CBIA BizCast powered by Google. On this podcast, we dive into stories about Connecticut businesses.
Downs Construction actually came to my school.
And business leaders.
I think it's always also really important to be able to see a path forward.
Who are shaping the future of Connecticut's economy.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and today we are here at Microboard in Seymour. We're joined by the CEO, Nicole Russo. Welcome to the BizCast.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
We're so excited to be here. Your facilities are just such a ray of light, really.
Thank you. We are modern and high-tech and clean, and we always want to look that way.
So why don't we start off just learning a little bit more about what Microboard does?
Sure. So we've been in Connecticut proudly for 40 years, founded in 1983 as an electronics repair shop. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, what that was then to what we are now. Now we are one of the most advanced electronics manufacturers in the country. So we're producing printed circuit board assemblies for the medical, military, industrial, and telecom sectors. We have 15 core customers here. We're very selective on our customer list based on credit, culture, and complexity. Those are three of our C's that we drive every engagement to. And we have 150 employees here with 60,000 square feet.
Wow. And it's to span across all of those industries. Is it a big difference in projects?
It is, yeah. When you look at the industrial and telecom sector, those products are usually a little less complex, although supply chain has been complex for everybody now for 2 years. And then when you talk about the medical rigor that's needed on medical life-saving defibrillators and other devices, and then the defense sector where we're doing things like IED, roadside jammers, signals intelligence that's being used in war zones, night vision goggles. Those are very, very intensely technical products.
As you mentioned, this company's come a long way in 40 years. Your father started the company. He had a very specific mission. Tell us about that.
He did. He was a consultant in Silicon Valley and had a calling on a flight back after he'd been traveling on a red eye every week to California. And the calling was to, service one of his clients by repairing Teddy Ruxpin toys that he was actually working to help build that business. And then it was also to help people around the world that were less fortunate, making less than $1 a day with medical, water aid, and education. And he kind of set out with a very small business down in Stratford, Connecticut, wooden benches made by my grandfather, brought in these teddy bears, started electronically repairing them, and from there then became known for as a repair center, repaired phones and other electronic devices. All the time also starting that mission of giving back. So at the end of every year he would take what little profit he had left and give it away. And he had faith in God, and that that next year the business would come. And little by little he grew it. He became well known and respected for the repair business. And then some customers asked for new products and said, "Can you build us new printed circuit board assemblies?" And so he ventured into it. And 40 years later, we built the communication system for the Pentagon and a number of the other devices I just said. So it's been quite a 40-year journey.
Yeah, definitely. And 40 years. It's a long time, but it's also a short period of time to make that transformation.
It is. Well, and I grew up in the business. I have 2 siblings. We're really close as a family. I'm the oldest. My dad's rule when we were growing up in the business is we had to work here in the summers. And in order for us to go do fun things, we had to work here first. And then he wanted us to get a higher education and work someplace else for 5 to 7 years to, as he would term it, really get our noses bloodied someplace else. And so I did that. I went to GE Capital. I was one of the youngest women vice presidents at GE Capital, working in distressed debt. So I learned the finance and accounting side of business really well, which I'm convinced you can run any business in the world if you know how to do the numbers. And then I came back here after I had my first daughter, my first child. Started kind of tipping my toe back in, had my second child, my son. My kids are 16 and 18 now. And I have a wonderful husband that's supporting all of us through this. And came back, and in 2009 became president. And it's just been a journey since then, really growing the business.
Now, growing up around this place, I'm sure it looks a little bit different than it does now, but tell me, were you intrigued, or were you like, I don't know if I'm going to come back?
Well, my dad did something interesting, is he would always have us come to like family meetings. And when you're young, you don't quite understand that. Why am I sitting in this family meeting? What am I listening to? I don't understand electronics. And it was the best thing ever, because although we didn't understand it, it was the nuggets were sinking in. And then watching how he built the business, he always went after the most advanced technology equipment, even before our customers knew they needed it. So when a customer walked through here, like a Nokia or an IBM, they were blown away of the suite of equipment we have here that their products and their future products would need for their manufacturing. So I watched him build the business that way. I watched him think long and visionary on things, and that's what we've continued to do, and it's why we can be select with 15 core customers.
Wow, that's awesome. And you said you kind of came back into the space. Where did you start at that point?
So I came back in leading our program management group, which is customer service. I really love, that's my love, is listening to customers about growth opportunities, challenges. Not everything's always easy, solving them together. And then I started looking at the ops side, really. I'd grown up in the ops side, so I really understood manufacturing. I also had the now background at GE in the finance and accounting, and I knew how to service customers. So in 2009, when he said, you're ready to take the president's role, I felt pretty ready. And then, from there, I've just hired really great people. I've just surrounded myself with the best engineers, the best customer service, really great marketing and sales team. And it's not easy. The product we build is hard. COVID was really difficult on many aspects. We're coming out of that, and it's new. The workforce has changed, and things are different. But you just keep going, one day at a time.
And when you talk about hiring really great people, the hiring world right now is very challenging. What kind of challenges have you experienced in that realm, or have you not?
Yeah, no, we've definitely had our challenges. During COVID, we had some of our workforce exit that was going to retire eventually anyways, so they just decided to retire early. We had others that had to stay home with childcare. And then we had some that were looking for different opportunities. So we did have some turnovers. We have filled many of those positions. We do still have several key positions open. They're actually on our website. We're always recruiting for them, both locally and nationally. We have a national recruiter. It's very difficult. It's a wage war in one sense, and as a small business, we can't always compete on benefits and things that the larger companies offer. So what we try to really compete on is the culture here. Family-owned business, some of the work we're doing with our humanitarian partners, that people, more and more I'm seeing applicants that want to leave a legacy. They're thinking about, hey, I'm not just coming to work every day. I want to actually be able to talk to my family about working for somewhere that we're leaving a legacy for the next generation. So that's been a selling point, but it's still very difficult to attract people.
Let's dive into that humanitarian efforts. Your dad, from the very beginning, like you said, set those funds aside, had the rest of the earnings given out. But how have you been able to continue that? And tell us what you're doing now.
Sure. So we watched this evolve from when I was really a teenager through now, and wrestled with really where should we be in the world. There's so much need. I mean, there's need right here in our own towns, right? But we stayed committed to people that make less than $1 a day. And when you look at a place like India, Jaipur, India, that is the lowest of poverty. They make less than 30 cents a day as rag pickers. So we went in there, we partnered with a team that has a school. They started with 10 students. They're now up to 500. We're the only funder of that school. They've been here with us visiting, and we're dreaming about 5,000 students. And we've been funding them for about 10 years now, watching that grow. It is its own little business model, and it's becoming self-sustaining in a way. And that's one of our goals, is our missions partners, and they become self-sustaining at some point. We're also working in the Congo. It's one of the most hostile places in the world. We're providing communication through radios to bring peace. We're working in northern Africa, where Boko Haram and some of the most hostile terrorists are, putting in water wells. Water brings peace. Peace, everyone needs water. So we've seen some of the barriers break down across tribal areas that people are able to communicate now, planting some churches, working in the Philippines, some of the remote areas down there, trying to bring in really the love of God. How do we help people, and then also at the same time give them the critical medical education and water that they need. So it's a multi-prong approach. So it's 9 partners, but I have to tell you, COVID was difficult, but I always look at COVID as what were the silver linings in COVID. And we used to fly 1 or 2 of our missions partners here once a year. When COVID hit, we said, well, let's just do a big Zoom. We'll put all 9 of them together. before you knew it, they were cross-sharing with each other. This one's sending a water rig from northern Africa down to southern Africa. This one's sharing fabric from India that they need in the Philippines, and it's been phenomenal to see this thing explode. So the cross-pollination and then the sustainment. And there's one interesting thing we lost my dad 2 years ago, and he was ready. He wanted to go be called to heaven, and so we were sad, but we said we're going to honor him somehow. And my mom's name is Sandy. So my mom loves animals, and so we started something called Sandy's Helpers in Nigeria. And what it is, it's widows and orphans there that have really no mode of making a living or sustaining themselves. And we provided each of those widows with a goat, a chicken, and some honeybees. And they are actually self-sustaining now as they provide for their families, whether it's milking the goat, selling the milk, making cheese. So we're actually up to supporting a couple hundred widows just in the 2 years that my dad's passed.
Wow, it really is like a whole nother business.
It really is. I mean, there's not enough hours in my day to run this and listen to all that good news. I just try to fit it all in.
Yeah. And how do you think, what impact, I know you said obviously on the employees, but what do you think the greater impact is? I mean, a lot of big businesses, small businesses try to give back in various ways that they can, but this is another type of level.
Yeah, I think for us it's interesting because it's who we've been for 40 years. It's not like a customer came in and said, hey, you need to do some social work, and it is at the core of our culture here. And when we look at that, every dollar we send goes directly to the people. It's not going to administrative, so every dollar is getting where it needs to be. And then the fact that we really did want to set these up as mini sustaining missions that they could self-fund themselves. Getting that school to 5,000 students in India, we will do that. And we're going to do it, one, because we're smart business people, but two, we believe God's going to bless what we're doing, and it's going to become self-funding as they draw in students that are looking for higher education, and it's more valued in those communities there. So we're doing everything to the same caliber in the missions field that we're doing here, the highest level of integrity and quality. So I think it's just different, and we own it. We're not doing it through a Red Cross. We're not doing it through Habitat for Humanity, which are great organizations. This is us direct with these folks, and it's really cool to sit and listen to them and listen to their challenges. We've got some folks in our network that are being persecuted and hunted in different areas for what they're doing because others don't like it, and these folks are putting their lives on the line. So we spend a lot of time really supporting them.
And do you have a group of employees that work for Microboard that are kind of part of these efforts, or how does it, do employees do both? How does that work?
Sure. So we have a gentleman here by the name of Lee Cancelon. He's been with us for a couple decades, as long as the business has been around, but he came full-time more onto our staff about 10 years ago, and he's going out to the missions field, bringing our message from our employees. We've also, right before COVID, tried to send an employee out there. We're going to restart that again to in Africa or an India location. And then what we do here is every Tuesday at 1:05, we have something called chapel. It's written into our corporate kind of bylaws, and it's something my dad started. Non-denominational, but people can come share if you're struggling with something in life, or maybe something's going really well and you want to share. And what we'll do a lot of times is we'll highlight one of our partners at that meeting, and they may join us by Zoom. Actually, we had one here this week who's in our building from India with his family, so he spoke yesterday to about 30 of our employees. So that's how we pull the employees into it, and they love it. Also, if you walk through our building, you'll see there's a lot of pictures. Sometimes customers come through and say, are you a humanitarian company or an electronics company? So we're really proud of the partners and being out in the field with them, so we showcase it through galleries of pictures.
Very interesting. I've started to see them just walking around a little bit, how ingrained the two things are very different, but really connected on this one level.
Yeah, it's very part of our ethos here every day. Yeah.
Awesome. Now back to kind of the technology side. I know the standards are very high. They're also ever changing. Technology is continuing to jump rapidly.
Yeah.
How do you stay up to date? What role does research development play?
Sure. So each product that we build here goes through an in-depth review at time of quote to make sure, first of all, it's a product we can build before we quote it. We have an engineering team that does that, and many times we're looking at product that is leading edge, bleeding edge, and components that are smaller than the size of a grain of sand. You cannot see it. Think about a pepper flake, and where you can barely see it. So the first thing we have to do is make sure we have the technology here to place that, which we do. We can place it, and we can robotically place it, and we can inspect it. Because you can't see it with the naked eye, we can also test it on our test equipment. So we'll go through and watch the evolution of our customers' portfolios, and over time, many of the boards, printed circuit boards, have gotten smaller. The density's gotten, and economically that's better, but it means it's more challenging for our processes out here. So what we'll have is revisions of printed circuit board assemblies that may start as a large format, and then over a multi-year period, they change, they get smaller, they get new chips put on them. The chips are smarter. A CPU, one of the central processing units, or a programmable device that can be programmed remotely, will change the footprint on that board, and that will be a new revision. So every time we do a new revision of a product, it's R&D. We're looking at what's changed on it. How do we have to change our processes? How do we have to change our chemistries? We run ovens here that allow the solder to become molten and then cure. So all of that is a lot of R&D to make sure. We generate about 500,000 printed circuit boards a year through here. And if we had more than 10 back as an RMA, that would be a lot. So what leaves here is good product. And it's because we do all that R&D up front. We do qualification builds. We have a lot of inspection and robotic equipment built in, and we get good product to the field.
Do you face any challenges trying to sustain that?
We don't see anything right now. There's nothing that's come to us that we can't build. I'll give you an example of a program. About 8 years ago, one of our customers was struggling with one of their printed circuit boards with a competitor of ours, and they approached us finally and said, hey, listen, the competitor is unable to build these. Will you, Microboard, try? And we looked at it and we said, this thing is, for lack of a better term, a monster. I mean, a really difficult product. And my engineers right away didn't say yes. They said, let us review it. They spent about 3 months looking at special equipment. We ended up finding a special piece of equipment in Germany called a vapor phase that allows a board to be soaked in a special fluid rather than go through a hot oven, and that gives it a cure that's gentler on the soldering. And my engineers came and said, it's $300,000, we want to buy it. And I said, are you sure it's going to work? They said, we think, and we bought it. And that customer has subsequently, for 8 years now, continued to award that board. We also helped them get out of what was about a 2-year backlog that they couldn't get the product to our warfighters. So that's the kind of stuff where we're careful, we're thorough, we make sure we can do it, and we haven't had any issues right now that we've bought something and haven't been able to make it perform.
That makes you guys stand out for sure.
It does, and I think our customers trust us. They know when they give us a product. If we say no to something, it's either not the right fit for whatever reason. It might be too low complexity. You can't put a lot of low complexity into this shop, where maybe those things should be in a lower cost area or even in Mexico. And our customers know that. So there's a sweet spot for us as far as the technology. And then they also know that if we come across something, sometimes printed circuit boards are extremely dense. They have many, many layers of copper and laminate. And we'll say to a customer sometimes, hey, we do not believe this is buildable in this format. We recommend you make changes to it. We don't own the design. And then we'll work with one of our suppliers, and then the customer will make the changes, and then it makes it more producible here for us. So we're very embedded in that process.
So you mentioned life-saving products. Obviously, the stuff that you're working on is very, very specific. Tell me about some of these products and just the trust in getting things right.
Sure. So one of the products we're really proud to partner with here is DefibTech. They're in Guilford, another Connecticut company, and we're making thousands of defibrillators every month for them. So we are seeing live active saves of lives from that product, and we've been working on that for over 20 years. Another product that we're actively building is for Alarm.com, and it's an indoor active shooter detection system. I always say it's so unfortunate we need that, but we do. And that is near and dear to our hearts. My 2 nephews were at Sandy Hook when the tragedy happened, and they're okay. And I always say they're okay, but they're not okay, because it's been a lot on them psychologically. So when they approached us to build that product about 9 years ago, it was just a startup, and we had an emotional connection. So that is being deployed now in schools, different government buildings, different places around the country I can't really speak to, but it's a life-saving device. We're also making many devices for the war zones. I just got a customer call about 2 weeks ago that said, Nicole, I just got a call from the troops. I need this board by the last week of July. It's going right over into Ukraine. I don't know what it does. They're not telling me what it does. I have a sense, but these are real things that are out in the field. Night vision goggles, the night vision goggle program, you can Google it, look at YouTube. It is so sophisticated that a war fighter does not have to pull a rifle to their actual eye. They can shoot through a goggle. To us it looks like a video game. To them it's a life-saving couple of seconds. We're making that system here. So these are really important. So for the precision, the quality of them, making sure they're getting life-saving defibrillators, shot detection systems, and things for our soldiers every day are being produced here.
Yeah, that goes back to the quality that you strive for.
Yes, absolutely.
And in terms of, you mentioned 40 years, you're celebrating. That's quite a milestone. What does that mean to you, and what's the future hold?
Sure. So one, we've started to bring the third generation into the business. I mentioned I have 2 kids. My brother has 3 and my sister has 2. So that generation's already kind of been here. They've been at a lot of our humanitarian meetings. We actually did something really neat on the humanitarian side. We started what's called a Timothy team. So we're bringing up the next generation of our humanitarian partners while we're bringing up our next generation of leaders here in our family. And we're trying to marry them together, both business and humanitarian. So we're really looking for this to be a multi-generation building. In fact, the business is held in a charitable trust that in a way that honors our parents. And if we were ever going to sell it, the request was that all the money would go to charity. So we don't ever plan to sell this business. We feel really blessed. We feel blessed to have that third generation coming up, and they're interning here and they're learning. They're learning the hard way. They're sweeping floors and doing things that they need to do as entry level. And then, for us, we're going to continue to pour our time into the best technology, add a few select customers. We're going to continue to support, the humanitarian partners, and our goal is, 40 years from now, we're celebrating that 80th. I probably won't be here, but that third and fourth generation will be here. So.
Yeah, and still doing your dad proud.
Absolutely, yeah. And my mom is a big piece of it too, and she's still with us.
Yeah.
So she's in the building every Tuesday, running around talking to people, and it's fun. She's the chairwoman now, and it's great to see her.
And your other siblings, what role do they play?
So they're both on our board. But my brother's a very successful attorney here in Connecticut with multiple sites at his law firm. And my sister lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire now, and is a stay-at-home mom. She was a Christian counselor for a while and came in and out of this business, but she's doing the mom thing right now. But we're all active as a family, seeing each other quite often for both business and personal.
Wow. So, learning about between the humanitarian side of what you do, the technological side, and really how you got here through this family business. What do you think that you've learned along the way? I mean, you're really juggling 2 businesses, and finding ways to put them together.
Yeah. I have like a fun mantra that I call it triple F, which my family thinks triple F means forced family fun on vacations.
We have that as well.
But for me, it's faith, family, and friends. And my faith is my rock. So when it feels overwhelming and there's a lot coming in, it's like, all right, God, you only give us as much as we can handle. So what door am I opening and closing, right? My family's been amazing. Couldn't do it, like I said. My husband's been staying home with our kids for the last 12 years. He was at GE as well and decided to stay home. So that's been a rock in our family. And then I've got a great network of employees, and my employees are really family and friends. So that keeps me really centered, those 3. But I think the other thing is we like to have fun. We come to work every day, it's hard. These are long days, we're very fast paced. We are not an OEM here. As a contract manufacturer, our customers, I just got a call from a customer yesterday that said, hey, good news, we're about to send you in a $3.5 million PO. I said, thank you. And they said, we want it in September. I said, oh, September 24? No problem. She said, no, this September. The lead times on components are 48 to 50 weeks, and so she laughed, and I said, you're not going to get it in September, but that's what we're facing every day. Customers need, the trajectory for electronics is just nonstop. So they need this product fast. We are running at a fast pace here, trying to fulfill that. So it can be, if you're not careful, if you don't keep yourself fully organized, you can get run over, and then but have fun doing it. And we have special days here. We have sports day, bring your pet to the work day with pictures, wear a fascinator for the derby. I take part in all of it. They're trying to get me in a dunk tank. I haven't agreed to do that yet. We're throwing great 40th galas with Chris Bishop and his team, leading that for us. And you have to take a breath and a step back and slow down and say, are we enjoying what we're doing? And making sure the employees are feeling that.
Yeah, and it all goes back to that purpose too.
It does,
which is how this company started.
Exactly, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate hearing your story about the work that you're doing here and overseas.
Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. And Connecticut's great. We love it here, and I'm the biggest supporter. I'm raising my family here, and it's a great workforce, and we need to draw more people into our workforce here. And so I'm very bullish on where our company's going, and I feel very blessed. So thank you.
And thank you for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. And for more episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.